All right, so our next topic now are going to be the white blood cells that are agranulocytes. All right, again, the difference between the granulocytes and the agranulocytes was classified based on staining and looking at them through a microscope. Agranulocytes still have some of those components that make up the granules in the granulocytes. They're just much smaller, okay? So there's a difference in staining between the two. That's why they're classified as agranulocytes versus granulocytes. The agranulocytes that we're going to talk about, first we're going to cover the monocytes, okay? And the monocytes give rise to our macrophages and our dendritic cells. So it's a differentiation process associated with the monocyte, all right? And then we've got our lymphocytes. And our lymphocytes are going to give rise to our B cells, our T cells, and my favorite, the natural killer cell, okay? In terms of where we'll start with the monocyte, okay? The monocyte, remember, is going to come from the myeloid lineage. The lymphocytes are going to originate from the lymphoid lineage, okay? So there's not a distinction between the lineage and whether it's a granulocyte or agranulocyte. Our neutrophil, basophil, eosinophil, that all came from the monocyte. Or not the monocyte, from the myeloid lineage with our blood formation. And in terms of our monocyte, the ones that are going to be important there are going to be our macrophages, all right? And the reason the macrophages are important are because this is another type of cell that is a phagocyte, okay? So if I draw a macrophage here, I'm going to draw kind of the membrane all over. You're going to have a typical round nucleus that you would expect to see in a cell, all right? But what's unique about the macrophage is that that macrophage essentially has that same ability as our neutrophil did to move and sense its environment and essentially engulf potential pathogens, all right? So we'll draw this up here since I'm running out of space. But what'll happen then, that macrophage is going to digest those pathogens. It's going to break it apart, all right? And in terms of our macrophage, that process of phagocytosis is going to become important again when we get to chapter 17, because the macrophage can act as an antigen-presenting cell, all right? The dendritic cell also has that function, all right? So in terms of the macrophages, they're going to be the component of our innate immune system that is going to interact with the more specific part of our immune system, with the adaptive immune system, okay? So in terms of that, macrophages go into the innate classification because they will go around and they will phagocytose any particle that macrophage finds that is tagged as foreign, all right? It's not a specific response. So anything, including it'll phagocytose pollen if it happens to come across it, all right? That's not threatening. Pathogen is, okay? It's going to be up to our adaptive immune response to determine what's threatening, what's not, okay? So the macrophages are an important part of our immune system because of the role they play, that way, all right? And in terms of our lifespan, typically macrophages are around for about 2 weeks, give or take. They're fairly long-lived as immune cells go, all right? The lymphocytes that we'll talk about, those are going to be even longer-lived than the 2 weeks, okay? So we've got our macrophages. Oh, the other thing about macrophages that I need to talk about, okay? You are going to come across some tissue-specific names if you've taken A&P. So you may have heard of Kupffer cells, which are present in the liver. Those Kupffer cells are actually a type of macrophage that's found within the liver, okay? So in terms of that, the cell was named before it was known that it was actually part of the immune system. They thought it was something specialized to the liver. It's not. But in terms of that, the Kupffer cells would be one example. The microglial cells in the nervous system are also a type of macrophage. It's a specialized macrophage. And the microglia cell is going to be found in the nervous system and will phagocytose any foreign particles that are found within the central nervous system, okay? So there are some tissue-specific types of macrophages. On the PowerPoint, I think the image gives you the names of some of the others. I'm not so concerned that you know all the names of all the different types of tissue-specific macrophages, but I do want you to know that those macrophages are distributed throughout the body. They're kind of on surveillance, engulfing whatever foreign particles they find along the way, okay? So those macrophages really do a lot of work, okay? Our other type of cell that we're going to talk about is going to be the dendritic cell, okay? You might think dendritic cell, oh, that certainly must have something to do with the immune system. Well, not so much. It turns out the dendritic cell kind of sends out some long processes that look like dendrites. So when it was named, they called it a dendritic cell, all right? It is named because it resembles kind of the shape of a neuron with the processes that it sends out, okay? But this is not a neuronal cell, all right? It is, however, another one of our phagocytes, all right? And this is also going to be another one of the cells that we're going to talk about with Chapter 17. And in terms of the dendritic cell, it can also have some function as an antigen-presenting cell. But it also plays a role in the activation of T cells. And we'll talk about that portion of dendritic cells when we get to Chapter 17, because I don't want to bring in T cells right now, all right? But in terms of the dendritic cell and the macrophage, this is going to have some overlap with the adaptive immune response. So just keep that in mind, all right? Again, this is going to be a phagocytotic cell. So much like the macrophage, it's kind of roaming around. It engulfs pathogens, and then it kind of presents those pathogens out on its cell membrane. If it finds a T cell, the T cell then is going to be the specific part of your immune response that's going to determine whether that pathogen is really something threatening or not, okay? So in terms of that, from our monocyte lineage, we've got macrophages and dendritic cells that are agranulocytes. If you have any questions, please